The Mahabharata is defined by mythology's most devastating family feud, a conflict with roots that reach back before a single soldier stepped onto the battlefield. To find the true cause of the war, we have to look at the impossible biology of the two rival bloodlines. The royal family tree split into Gajahoya and Hastina, both facing reproductive failure. Gajahoya's Queen Gendari suffered an agonizing 2-year pregnancy. Hastina's King Pandu lived under a lethal curse. Physical intimacy meant instant death, blocking his lineage completely. These patriarchs were trapped. Normal biology offered no path forward, leaving a power vacuum that threatened to collapse both kingdoms. Desperation eventually forced both families to pursue unnatural interventions. They sought out miraculous and often horrifying methods of birth that would define the character of the next generation. The pressure in Gajahoya finally peaked when Gendari's husband questioned if she was carrying a child or a disease. In a fit of grief and rage, Gendari locked herself away and violently beat her own pregnant belly. The trauma induced a sudden birth, but the result was a single, grotesque lump of red flesh. It sat on the floor, rhythmically expanding and contracting, as if it were a single massive lung. Overwhelmed by disgust, Gendari slammed the mass onto the floor, shattering it into exactly 100 individual, breathing fragments. To preserve the dynasty, the sage Bagawan Abyasa gathered these pieces and placed them into 100 separate clay pots, creating an artificial field of incubation. In Hastina, King Pandu utilized the Manga Pertanga Jiva, a celestial fruit that allowed him to transfer his seed to his wives through a ritual consumption, bypassing his death curse entirely. Dewi Kunti then called upon Batara Bayu, the god of wind and physical power, to mature the divine seed. Through his intervention, the pregnancy reached full term in just 24 hours. Her son, Raden Bima, was born encased in an unbreakable, translucent caul called the bunkus. Because no mortal blade could pierce it, the gods ordered the parents to leave the infant in a forest, where he would spend years in solitary, meditative incubation. Gajahoya's heirs emerged from an act of frustration and violence, while the heir of Hastina required years of divine, solitary patience. After 35 days of incubation in Gajahoya, the first pot shattered. Out crawled the first Kurawa child, a boy named Suyudana. His first breath coincided with a total eclipse. Lightning struck the palace repeatedly, and the city was filled with the howling of wild dogs. Royal advisors warned that these omens signaled a child who would bring ruin to the world, but his father refused to listen, swearing to defend his son against any threat. While Gajahoya celebrated this dark arrival, King Pandu was at the borders of Hastina, facing a massive invasion from the giant king, Prabu Tremboko. Pandu defeated the giant king quickly, but instead of finishing him, he chose to show mercy. He transformed a battlefield enemy into a lifelong ally. Pandu even took the time to name Tremboko's newborn giant children, ensuring that the next generation of giants would be bound to the kingdom of Hastina by honor rather than blood. This created a sharp divergence. Gajahoya was moving inward, ignoring apocalyptic warnings, while Hastina was looking outward, turning external threats into a coalition of allies. These events established the final board state of the epic, 100 chaotic Kawara siblings on one side, and the 5 disciplined Pandava brothers on the other. In Javanese Wayan lore, these origins function as a blueprint. The physical circumstances of a character's birth are seen as a literal manifestation of their inner nature and their role in the coming conflict. The Kauravas were born from a single mass that was shattered into 100 fragments in a moment of rage. This physical scattering mirrors their future as a fractured, factional force that struggles to maintain a singular moral center. Bhima, however, was defined by the bunkus, the unbreakable shell. His years of forced, isolated patience inside that caul reflect his destiny as the stoic, singular powerhouse of the Pandavas. The parents' specific traumas and methods of intervention were not just temporary fixes. They were the mechanisms that shaped the unavoidable nature of the characters and the conflict they would inherit. The seeds of the Great Bharatayuddha War were planted the moment those 100 pieces of flesh and one unbreakable shell took their first breaths.